Hello all of you beautiful people, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and when it comes to wrestling, it's a bit of a fantasy booker's paradise, as you can take a look at the list of names on rosters from AEW, the WWE and beyond, and basically create a pay-per-view of your own custom dream matches. But there's a few problems that obviously comes with it, sometimes thanks to the fact that the talent is on competing rosters, and others because quite frankly the wrestlers involved don't actually want them to happen. Yeah, so let's take a look at them. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 dream matches wrestlers refuse to work. Number 10, The Rock vs Randy Orton. Now, Randy Orton evidently doesn't give too much of a shit about anything in wrestling anymore, and after nearly 20 years of forcing commenters to come up with new synonyms for slow, it's easy to see why. I mean, seriously, the guy wrestles at a glacier pace sometimes. In between only really trying when he can actually be bothered and working with whoever he fancied elevating at the time, the apex predator shot for the moon and tried to line up a WrestleMania match with The Rock. Tweeting Rock ahead of his return to television for SmackDown's debut on Fox in 2019, Orton had this to say: "How about you and I have a discussion about who's the greatest third generation of all time, and we answer that question April 5th in Tampa at WrestleMania 36. A Viper's sense of smell is unmatched. I smell what you're cooking." Now, plenty of people immediately got behind this, such as the scale of Orton's fan base and everybody's general thirst to see The Rock wrestle again. But the most electrifying man in sports entertainment was keen to power down any conversation of this ever occurring, as he replied, "You think Bob Orton Sr. and Chief Maivia, along with our Pops Bob Jr. and the Soul Man, ran up and down those roads for decades, taking bumps just so that we can sell out WrestleMania 36 so you can RKO my ass through the earth? My body's still recovering from that Evolution beatdown you gave me at WrestleMania 20, which when you consider it all, is polite, but pretty bloody potent." Number 9, Shawn Michaels vs AJ Styles. It was during a WWE Network Table for 3 special that Shawn Michaels brought up a cool Photoshop poster that he'd seen at a San Antonio Royal Rumble that he pitched the prospect of the showstopper returning to take on AJ Styles. He noted that, with great respect, as good as he knew it could be, he found the idea somewhat pointless compared to the possibility of helping others. Then Saudi Arabia happened. Crown Jewel 2018 was perhaps the most controversial of all of the shows the company had presented in the country thus far. But while outside the ring issues dogged the coverage, one infamous return dominated the reviews. Michaels seemed earnest in his original answer regarding the phenomenal one, but WWE somehow found his price when the Saudi Arabian Sports Authority was suddenly only too happy to fund it. The Styles match really did feel more and more like a dream match as the Brothers of Destruction vs D-Generation X nightmare unfolded in front of us. Number 8, Brock Lesnar vs Matt Riddle. Put simply, Brock does not want to do this. Lesnar has gone on record as saying that Riddle hasn't been and never will be for him. And he's a man that can pretty much call his shots anytime he wants to, whenever he decides to return to action. Following a backstage interaction at the 2020 Royal Rumble between the pair, reported that The Beast said, "Kid, you might as well stop saying my name and tagging me in shit because you and I will never work together. Ever," in response to some post-show needling by the original Bro Online. Dave Meltzer corroborated similar sentiment in the months that followed, mostly in response to fans that really wanted it. Now, there's a lot of meat on the bone with this idea. Both are former MMA stars that have mastered this other art, and the two have never faced. And plus, watching Brock absolutely mangle Riddle would be incredible, but this is one juicy slab that Brock has got no interest in apparently. Number 7, Cody Rhodes versus the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Now, AEW have been steadfast in sticking to an awesomely unique stipulation that Cody Rhodes cannot challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship thanks to his MJF-assisted loss to Chris Jericho at Full Gear 2019. A recent Dynamite loss to Malachi Black saw Rhodes remove one boot in a symbolic gesture of retirement before Black returned to nearly batter him out of the other one. But this could actually represent Cody's half-in, half-out commitment to AEW in the months and years ahead. Should he do the impossible and ease into actual retirement, there's a chance that the thirst for one of the company's founders to win the world title might actually subside. But in the meantime, the company have booked this sublimely. If they ever go back on the 2019 stipulation, it'll only be because fans have clamored so hard for it in the first place. Convincing audiences to want a consequence to be abandoned might be the organization's most impressive act yet. Number 6. The Rock vs. Shawn Michaels. Something of an historic beef and/or bad timing got in the way of The Rock and Shawn Michaels ever working together when both were major stars and in and around the ring enough to work together. But Shawn Michaels' own intent to stay retired seemed to be just as big an obstacle as any the Great One might have actually erected for him. The aforementioned Saudi Arabia stinker seems to have put Michaels off ever donning the boots and tights again, particularly as he no longer considers it going back on the retirement stipulation that he set for himself back in 2010. Meanwhile, The Rock's memory goes back even further than that. He's put over Bret Hart repeatedly as the guy that went to bat for him in 1997, but HBK, on the other hand, was substantially less supportive of his cause in contrast. Stories from even further back suggest a young Michaels was rude to his grandmother, further cementing this rather historic discord. Number 5. CM Punk vs. Triple H. Even less likely to ever happen now that CM Punk seems AEW bound, a potential WrestleMania 30 contest not happening changed the course of wrestling history as we knew it, and it's likely that neither man is particularly keen to even approach such an idea again. Back in 2011, a series of worked shoot promos escalated beyond anything anybody really enjoyed, Triple H especially. Following lots of unexpected prodding by Punk, including flapping Hunter's tie in his face, the game seemingly exerted his influence to have the push gradually poleaxed until half the heat had died down, and Punk never forgot this, pitting just as much fury on the prodigal son-in-law when he told Vince McMahon that enough was more than definitely enough 3 years later. A show of shows between them was an insult dressed up as a main event, and it was a brass ring that Punk had grown tired of grasping for. It feels more certain than ever before that they will never share a locker room again, let alone a post-match beer. Number 4. Goldberg vs. Riddle. Big Bill was in no mood for Riddle's shit when the two finally shared a dressing room months after the original bro gurned on about Goldberg's abilities either side of some pretty shocking Saudi Arabia appearances for WWE. Riddle's caustic remarks did generate a bit of interest in the two turning a shoot into a work, which may have been the former United States champion's intent, but he was also being, well, how do you put this, a bit of a prick. Plus, Goldberg's fairly limited schedule made the prospect pretty unlikely even if the man changed his mind. In 2021, Goldberg turned up to lose to WWE champion Drew McIntyre and saw him attempt to dethrone current title holder Bobby Lashley at SummerSlam, so Riddle would need the top strap to stand even half a chance of attracting his interest, and even then the notably stubborn and stoic former WCW icon probably wouldn't want to give him the satisfaction of going back on his stance. A clash of eras it may well be, but unfortunately for the Raw regular, the part-timer holds all the power here. Number 3. Shawn Michaels vs. Daniel Bryan. Though certain not to happen due to yet another case of Michaels probably not believing that he's got the performance in him, this Legends battle once seemed perfectly pitched thanks to HBK often being cast as Daniel Bryan's trainer in his formative years. Even more than the mooted AJ Styles clash, a match between two of the all-time in-ring greats would likely play well with the apprentice becomes the master structure, particularly if one of them was willing to lean into playing heel. Bryan proved exceptional as a reinvented version of himself in the late 2018 to early 2019 run, as was Michaels when he elected to side with his best friend Triple H over the crowd favorite Yes Man during that 2014 program. Bryan Danielson's rumored move to AEW is just one more way that this has probably been scuppered. Michaels is as embedded in the WWE as he's ever been, which stands in stark contrast to his former trainee. The artist formerly known as Daniel Bryan has seemingly never been less ensconced. Number 2. Tommaso Ciampa versus the main roster. Tommaso Ciampa has made no secret of not really being moved by life on the main roster. Speaking on the realities of becoming a Raw or SmackDown regular, he noted, "I would retire if somebody told me you'd have to do 300 dates a year. It was 2 months out of a broken neck. Now I'm a couple of years out of a broken neck, but I'm not a stupid man. Because of the pandemic, I've been wrestling a limited schedule with limited travel. So I feel great, but I also understand that there's probably reasons that I feel as good as I feel. I just have to do what's best for me, not just for Tommaso Ciampa, the legacy, but Tommaso Ciampa, the husband, the father, the human. I've got to take care of my body. So whatever presents itself that makes the most sense is what I'm going to do." So it's not a no per se, but he's at very least separated himself from those who look at it as the opportunity of a lifetime. And number 1, Batista versus The Rock. Though there doesn't appear to be any major outward tension between wrestler turned Hollywood stars Dave Batista and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, there certainly seems to be enough that the two probably wouldn't ever bother putting on the tights to face each other. Batista in particular has shot down comparisons between the two before in ever so slightly spicy tweets, including one recent note about their differing origin stories. But he's also made no secret of his intent to stay retired for good following his WrestleMania 35 bout with Triple H. Speaking to Digital Spy in 2021, he said, "It's hard to convince people that I'm actually retired. You have no idea how tough that decision is. When professional wrestlers retire, they don't really retire. They kind of retire, but you know that when the paycheck's big enough or the event's big enough, they come out of retirement. With no obvious motivation to return and no huge desire to actually go one-on-one with the Great One, it seems likely Rock will be suffering about as many Batista bombs as he will box office ones in the near future." And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 dream matches wrestlers refuse to work. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, that's Dice with a C, or do all of my streaming and Warhammer battle reports if you fancy being a nerd and spending some time with the old egg lad over here. But before I go, I just want to say one thing, my friend. Hope you're treating yourself well, both mentally and physically, treating yourself with love and respect, because you deserve all the best things in life. Yes, you do, and do not let anything or anyone else tell you otherwise, alright? You are a massive ledge, and I want you to go out there and absolutely smash it today. I believe in ya. Big love to you, mate. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.